Good afternoon. How's everyone doing today? So, just a quick introduction. It's 3:29 p.m. according to my watch, and now it's 3:30. So we're pretty much on schedule according to my timeline. Let me introduce myself quickly. My name is Binoy Mehta. I manage the Andheri office in Mumbai for EDU-World, and we're a 20 plus year old company, and with students going every year to locations like the US, UK, Germany, Australia, New Zealand, Switzerland, Italy, and we've even very recently started with some top Indian B school applications. In fact, we've successfully got students into ISP and SPGen as well. And with regard to some of the top schools that we place our students, our office specifically, we've gotten students into Carnegie Mellon, Georgia Institute of Technology, University of Southern California, Cornell, Columbia, Boston University, Northeastern, and a couple more options. We've been consistently for the last 3 years at 100% success rate with our application rate, and pretty much at 99% success rate with our visas. So to quickly begin, the topic for today's webinar is about the changing trends in financially planning your application process. The thing is, a couple of questions that we get each year are very repetitive. I mean, the application process is ever evolving. I mean, every year we come across new requirements that universities have, or even when it comes to documentation, what the changing trends are. Uh, for example, a lot of universities now, even in the US, will prefer that a student scan and upload all the transcripts and the documentation instead of mailing anything to them. And even when you're mailing in documentation, how it exactly works out. And more importantly, financially planning yourself for the application process, not for studying that. That obviously is something I'll be touching upon as well. So let's begin. Our website is www.myeduworld.com. My email address is Binoy, that's B for Bombay, I for India, N for Nepal, O for Orange, and Y for Yemen at myeduworld.com. You guys can all send me individual emails, post the seminar as well if you have other questions about your application process to be specific. So let's begin. Firstly, thanking our partners, Credila, to actually get this organized. It was at a short notice, so I guess I'm speaking to the 15 of you right now, and hopefully we'll upload this webinar online and we'll have even more people see this. So once again, to quickly start, this is pretty much what an application process looks like. The first thing is you start with identifying your university list. I mean, it's very important to get this right. I mean, that's the first stage, which is the shortlisting stage, where you need to look at your academics, you need to look at your GRE, GMAT scores, you need to look at your TOEFL cutoff, and come up with a university list. If it's an MBA program, then please be careful about the work experience, because if a university, most university says that, oh, there is no minimum work ex requirement, but you should always look at the average class profile. You should look at how many years of work experience is required by a university in terms of, it could be 3 to 5 years. Sometimes it averages at about 4 years. So be very careful when you're identifying your shortlist. Uh, then the next comes is the application process itself. That's stage 2, apply, where you're getting your documentation together. This is usually after you're done with your entrance examinations. That's the GRE for most non-business programs, and the GMAT for all business programs. If it's an undergraduate student, then you're looking at the SAT for the US. And if it's for the English exam, it's usually the TOEFL. When it comes to the US and the rest of the world, is the IELTS exam. Uh, what do you need to do in terms of documentation? You need to request a set of your academic transcripts. You need to get in touch with some recommenders, basically people who have closely worked with you or associated with you professionally, or even when it comes to college, who can better recommend you, and you ideally need to get 3 recommendation letters. Now, one of the most common questions I get is, does the designation of the recommender matter or the qualification of the recommender matter? No, it does not. It could be even an associate professor, and you could be getting 3 recommendation letters from associate professors. But more importantly, they should be able to comment on your academic ability. They should be able to comment on your communication skills, and they should be able to comment on how good you are in the classroom, and how you make the environment a lot better for your fellow classmates. Moving on, you have your statement of purpose, which I'll touch upon a little later. Then we have, excuse me, then you have what we call the affidavit of support and the bank letter, which is again very dependent on the institution. So please don't go around collecting multiple affidavit of support and bank letter, because as you may be aware, a lot of your schools may not even require this to begin with at the time of making an application. Apart from that, you will be required to give a resume or a curriculum with a CV. And of course, if it's a B school, or if it's undergraduate programs, or even a lot of MS programs that we are noticing now, they require essays. So essays pretty much should be based on your background, based on what you've done, challenges that you would have faced based on your background in terms of your academics. And finally, after your offer letter arrives, we'll finally move on to the visa stage. That's the last stage. I'll touch upon that a little later. Moving forward, a quick snapshot about us. We have 20 plus years of counseling experience. We have experience with 10 plus countries. We've sent 12,000 plus students so far. Like I said earlier, 99% success rate with our visas, 100% success rate with our applications. Well, just for new information for all of y'all, we now sort of do online counseling as well. So even if you're not from Mumbai, it's not a problem. A lot of my students are outside of Mumbai, and we help them seamlessly through the entire process. And finally, our admission placements, like I said earlier, include some of the best schools globally. First question, obviously, when should you start preparing for your application process? I would say you should start preparing at least 1 year in advance from the intake that you're planning. So if you're planning the fall 2014 intake, that is this August, you should have ideally started your process in June or July the previous year, allowing you enough times to get done with your documentation and your entrance examinations. Entrance exams, like I said earlier, is the GRE for NS students or all non-business programs. It's the GMAT for all business programs. It's the SAT for undergraduate programs in the US. And when it comes to the English proficiency test, it's the TOEFL for the US, and the rest of the world is IELTS. So if you're looking at Canada or UK or Switzerland, Australia, New Zealand, Italy, they all look at the IELTS only. And top B schools there would require a GMAT as well. Now, coming down to documentation. First thing, statement of purpose. What I ask my students to do to begin with is I break the statement of purpose down to 4 or 5 basic questions. The first one being, why do you want to pursue this program? All right. So basically, you need to talk about what excites you academically to study this program. Second thing is to give a brief about your background, and by that I mean academic as well as professional. Talk about your days in college, talk about the challenging classes you took when you were in college, talk about your extracurricular activities in college, at your professional workplace as well, talk about your work experience, talk about how it is working in a team-based setting, and obviously also if you're part of any extracurricular or co-curricular activities at your workplace as well. The next question would be your short-term and long-term goals. What will this master's program, what will this MBA program help you achieve? So you need to clearly identify your short-term goals, which is a 3-year duration, and the long-term goal is a 6-year duration. And finally, why this country and why this university? When you're applying to a university, the biggest drawback is students just leave it open-ended, that I want to study at a university because it has great research infrastructure, it has fantastic professors. Well, schools are more attracted to candidates when they are specifically mentioning about the high points of that university. So say that school has a special lab for their computer science programs, or if they have a special lab for their ECE program, talk about it a little. Talk about the infrastructure that the lab provides and how that will be beneficial to you. So this does require a little more digging in, a little more time spent on your application, but it will yield to scholarships, it will yield to higher acceptance rate at these universities. Moving on, essays. Essays usually cover Once again, they're touching upon your short-term, long-term goals. They're touching upon why you want to be a part of this university and so on. All right. So essays can even be about an ethical dilemma you face at your workplace or your academics or your college and what did you do and stuff like that. Next thing is recommendation letters. Now, one of the biggest things that students do is they get recommendation letters on letterheads from colleges and universities, which is still something that maybe 20% of the US universities follow. As you would be aware, if you're already a part of the application process, is that a lot of recommendation letters need to be completed online. What I mean by this is the system we had in place earlier is you get 10 hard copy recommendation letters and send the same thing out to every university. But schools are now evolving, like I mentioned earlier. They want to know more about you from your recommender. So what they prefer to make the process absolutely confidential and basically plagiarism free is to send out an invitation email to your recommender, who will then in turn respond to your query, who will then respond to that link by putting or uploading the recommendation letter. So you actually don't need to keep collecting hard copy recommendation letters. As long as you have your professor or your supervisor's email address, that pretty much does it. And it does not need to come on an official letterhead. I mean, if tomorrow someone was asking me to recommend someone over email, I'm not going to spend the time putting it on a letterhead, scanning it and uploading it. All right. So I would just simply respond to that email and answer all the queries that the admission officer has. Next thing is the academic transcripts. Well, first thing, you need to get 10 sets. Why? Because I believe a lot of colleges have their own timeline in terms of how they issue transcripts, and they have their own, sometimes even a cost structure. If you want the first 5 transcripts, it's 2,000 rupees and then 500 rupees after every transcript. So when you are shortlisting your universities initially, that's step one. You should identify which universities have a completely online process, even with the US, and which schools now have a process where you need to basically pretty much scan and upload your transcripts. So what happens then is that you realize if you're applying to, let's say, 8 universities, only 3 universities require the transcripts to be actually mailed or couriered to them. The balance transcripts are just sitting with you. Bank documentation. Excuse me again. Now, these are two things. One is a bank letter, and the next is an affidavit of support. Now, a bank letter can be of 3 kinds. One can be a solvency certificate, saying that the sponsor is solvent enough to the extent of 50,000 US dollars. One can be a balance certificate stating that you have that kind of money in your account, and the next is pretty much your statements, your entries, your deposits, withdrawals, etc. All of them are acceptable. Some universities, however, are specific that a solvency certificate will not do, and they would only and only want a balance certificate. What's most important is that the amount needs to be covering the cost that the university has estimated for international students. At the same time, the same balance certificate that we're talking about needs to be mentioned in US dollars as well. So if you're holding 30 lakh rupees in various accounts, you should mention 50,000 US dollars, because that's what the school actually cares about. And finally is the affidavit of support. Needs to come from your sponsor. It's not essential for the sponsor to be your parent. So don't go around running that, okay, we need to basically get XYZ documents from our parents, or we need to arrange for finances. You can even have an external sponsor. So it could be your parents funding you for 15 lakh rupees, and the balance 15 lakh can even be shown from a sponsor's account. And of course, our friends at Credila can more than happily give you a pre-sanctioned loan letter as well, which is also highly acceptable by all universities in America. Evaluation. Next to academic transcripts, if you see, there is what I've written as if evaluation is required. Now, there are some programs, health sciences, fashion, or some other design-oriented programs that require transcript evaluation. What this basically means is that the university you're applying to will want a transcript to be evaluated by an external evaluation service, because their own university does not have the resources to actually go out and evaluate your transcript. Now, this costs you upwards of $150, and be very careful of the documentation that needs to go through a WS evaluation. Let's say, for example, most MS programs in engineering or in business, do not require a evaluation. However, like I said, most health science programs, most fashion programs require an evaluation. So once again, you would be studying at a university, or you could be studying at a college affiliated to a university. Now these evaluation companies are very specific in the sense they only and only want documentation that comes from the university directly in sealed envelopes. You don't have to get a transcript, even a mark sheet that's attested by the university is more than acceptable. So you need to basically go to these places, make your account, put in your details, and they themselves will tell you what they exactly want, and you need to abide exactly through that. We've had a rough time dealing with evaluation companies. So once again, the advantages: start early, start at least a year in advance. Done with bank documentation and affidavit support. Next thing is extracurricular certificates. Please do not get photocopies of extracurricular certificates and send them to universities. They do not want them anymore. If you actually look at a lot of university websites, they're so specific about what they want that they've actually mentioned, if you send us any more documentation than what we've asked for, we just shred them, or it will heavily delay your application process. So if a school is asking for only an academic transcript and only financial documents, make sure you're sending only those, because the rest of the documents they're just going to shred. So my point being, if you have a strong extracurricular activity to discuss, your resume is where you need to discuss it, or your statement of purpose, or even your essays. Finally, GRE and GMAT, these scores should be officially reported to all the universities that you're applying to. TOEFL needs to be officially reported. IELTS, however, you can, in our experience, you can even send a tested photocopy to them. It will do, but once you're securing an admission to a university, you need to go out and actually send a hard copy IELTS score to these institutions. Excuse me again. Money matters. Now, like I mentioned earlier on the main slide, we obviously have, you need to account for the expenses that you're incurring when you're a part of the application process. So let me start with the US, because that I believe is the most expensive and the most complex process. Counselor charges vary from city to city, vary from your own comfort zone. We've seen counseling charges being as less as 15,000 and being as high as 2 lakh rupees per student as well. So it really depends upon who you're comfortable with. Coaching classes, again, this is very specific to the coaching class you want to choose. We've seen students pay as low as 15,000, pay as high as 50,000, 50,000. You need to add your GRE examination fee that you'll be paying. If you're appearing for your GMAT, you need to take care of that as well. TOEFL exam is usually 10,000 rupees. I'm rounding off most figures. GMAT is approximately $250. That's the last I recall, so it's about 15,000. GRE is about in the 12,000-13,000 range. Application fees. Now remember, on an average, each university charges approximately $60 per application. So that's approximately 3,600 rupees per application. Now, if you're applying to 8 schools, you're basically investing $480 on your application fees alone, which is approximately 30,000 rupees. Couriers. Not every university requires a courier. So that's why read through the fine print. If your university does not require a courier, do not send it. You're saving money here. Couriers can cost you as low as 800 rupees, can cost you as high as 2,500 rupees as well if you're going through directly or FedEx or something like that. Actually, don't be too stingy on the couriers, because I know a lot of people send it through a company who will charge probably 300, 400 rupees. But by spending 300 rupees more for 4 couriers, that's a fraction of the cost or fraction of the investment, but at least you get to track your application and do all of those. Once your application is processed and once you receive an offer letter, a university may or may not ask you for a deposit, which can range from as low as $100 to as high as $2,500. Need to account for that. Service charges are basically payable to the US government. So your service charges would be approximately $200 that you need to pay. That's about 12,000 rupees. And finally, your visa fees, which is also about 10,000 rupees. So all in all, your financial investment in the application process is approximately 80,000 to 1 lakh, taking into account all these different things. Moving forward, a visa prep checklist. I thought we'll discuss that. What goes on after you basically accept your offer. So once you accept your offer, in the case of the US, you receive an I-20. In the case of UK, you receive a cash letter. In case of some other countries, you receive an unconditional offer letter. So basically getting your financials together. If you're a self-funded student, ensure that you go out and get your finances together. US does not require to actually show all the money in your bank account. You need to, it's like you're aware, it's interview based. However, other countries like UK, Australia actually require you to have the funds in your account. Canada actually has gone out and started a new process where you need to deposit 10,000 Canadian dollars in a bank account there. Germany does that as well. You need to deposit 8,040 euro, and once you receive that letter, then you go out and apply for your visas. So apart from the US, most countries require you to show all the funding together. And of course, if you're a loan applicant, then our friends at Credila will be more than happy to assist you through the process. Academic documents, well, you need to get your degrees together, your mark sheets together, your basically your TOEFL score, your IELTS score, GRE, GMAT. You need to carry all those official scorecards with you. Again, this is very specific to the country you're applying to. Fill out the application with the help of an expert. Visa errors are a very common issue, and most a lot of rejections actually are because you did not fill out appropriate or adequate information as a part of the visa process. And finally, finish all your other formalities. Most countries will require you to go through some medical testing, so make sure that you're up to speed with that as well. Moving forward, this is the timeline associated with the general visa process. USA, like you can read, takes about 2 to 3 weeks of time to prepare yourself, and decision time will be immediate. You go in for an interview. If you're accepted, then they'll give you basically they'll give you the visa across the counter. If it's the UK, it's about 2 to 3 weeks of prep time, and the decision time can take as low as 2 weeks, actually even 4 days, and can take as high as a month. Canada, 2 to 8 weeks decision time, which is we personally witnessed a 60-day turnaround time for one of our students recently, which I think was highly questionable. But the thing is that they've gone on a strike, so you need to always start early, at least start 3 months before the program start date. New Zealand 4 to 8 weeks, Australia 4 to 8 weeks, Singapore 2 weeks, Italy 2 to 4 weeks, Switzerland 2 to 4 weeks. So yeah, basically I think I covered most of what I could do in terms of the changing trends in the application process and financially planning yourself. What a little about us again, we do a lot of US-based applications, and I'll open the platform now to some questions and answers. You can put so in the chat session, and if you have specific questions, please let me know and we can take it forward. How Sairam Prakash has asked me, how is masters in Italy? Well, Italy is a hub for fashion and design programs overall. So we have a lot of students going there for, let's say, fashion communication or fashion luxury brand management. When it comes to designing interior architecture, even fashion designing and some other very, very fancy design-oriented programs. How is the University of New Orleans? Well, it's a good school. It's a state university. How do you come to know if a university requires a courier or not? Well, it's given on the admissions section of the program that you're applying to. So that should be better be able to help you. What are service charges? Service charges are the $200 fee that you need to pay to the government. Basically, you're paying to the US government to accept the I-20 that you have from that university. All right, so that is for Sahil Karkhanis. Nitesh Agarwal has asked me a similar question. He's asked me, how is the University of New Orleans? Well, it's a good university, but it's not very popular with our students. Our students usually opt for, at least the engineering students look at the West Coast, specifically California and Oregon, as well as Washington, and on the East Coast, District of Columbia, that's Washington, D.C., New York State, New Jersey State, Massachusetts, and so on. Nitesh Agarwal, you again asked me the same question. I hope I answered it about the courier. Your program page or the admissions section of that page will answer that question. Mridula has asked me a question: how much amount max sanction as loan for the US? Credila even does 100% sanction depending on the program. They do not lock it to 20 lakh as most state banks would do it. Sahil Karkhanis is interested in database handling. Well, I suggest you and data analytics. There are two programs for you, Sahil. There is MIS, Management Information Systems, that's usually offered by the School of Business. There is another possibility where you can pursue a master's or a bachelor's in computer science, where you can major in database management. And there's another option called data sciences that you can pursue, which is basically the study of big data. Manoj Reddy has asked me education for MEC in Singapore compared to the US. Manoj, I believe you mean mechanical engineering. Well, Singapore is a business district inherently, so they do not have as many engineering programs. If you've been researching, you'll realize excuse me, that you have a lot more business programs there than engineering schools. In fact, NUS, Nanyang Polytechnic, and there are some 7-8 other polytechnic institutes which are the only schools in Singapore that offer mechanical engineering programs. Sahil Karkhanis, is there a specialization for the above fields? As I mentioned, yes, there is. Manit Narang, how much time does it take to get an education loan? Our friends at Credila will help you with that. They have, I believe they can, if they have everything in place, they can actually process it within a week's time. What are our fees? Varun Amin has asked us. Well, it really depends, and it's very specific to the program. If you're an undergraduate student, it's different from an MBA student, it's different from an MS. So we actually look at the work we need to put in and then give a quote. But it's usually in the 20 to 30,000 ballpark figure. Shivang Maheshwari has asked me, is it considered wrong to give GRE a second time by universities if they have your previous course? Absolutely not, Shivangi. Or Shivang, sorry, Shivang Maheshwari. You could go and give out your GRE 2 or 3 times as well. It does not reflect badly. However, you should not give your GRE more than 3 times because that does not reflect too well. And as long as the jumps in your GRE scores are significant, you will not have a problem. Veena has asked me, how is the visa granting percent for MS program in US these days? The general thing we're getting is pretty good, Veena. In fact, just yesterday and day before, we had approvals for students flying off at the end of March to UCLA for summer programs that they're starting soon. And you need to get your documentation, your general demeanor in place completely. As I mentioned, our visa success rate is very high. In fact, for America, for the last 5 intakes, my office has been at 100% success rate. Moving forward, Vivarun is asking me, which country is better funding in MS, in computer science, US or Canada? US, definitely. They have a lot more research grants there, which basically they give out. Sahil Karkhanis, I'm interested in database handling and database analysis. I believe I've answered that question. Nitesh, I believe I've answered your question. You asked me again. Nidhi Niharika, yes, we will send you the email. We'll email it across to you. Bridula, yes, I believe I'm getting your messages and I have been answering them. PS has asked me, how much is the GPA requirement for universities for MS? Few of them have very strict requirements. You're right. There is a GPA requirement of at least 3.0 for an average university and a 3.3 for basically the top 30 schools that you're looking at. Bhargav Ravela has asked me, is there a trend like first round results, second round results? Yes, there is. I mean, for undergraduate students, there are 3 unique deadlines. For MBA applicants, there are 3 to 4 unique deadlines. For MS applicants, however, it's usually either rolling or it's 1 deadline, and some programs could even have 2 deadlines. For financial consideration, the deadline is way earlier. It's usually in the month of November or December for the prevailing fall intake. Veena, you asked me what is the loan process for MS program in HDFC. Well, I think our friends at Credila will be more than happy to help you with that. Uh, Mridula has asked me again, how much does a GRE and TOEFL score matter for getting a loan? Well, I don't think that matters, Mridula. What matters is the university you're going to and the program you've opted for. Suprit has asked me, what are the most important things to consider while choosing a university? I've started asking my students three questions. They need to choose. Is there a location preference? Is there a budget you have in mind? And basically the employability in the area. So if you're in a region, like if you're going to, let's say you mentioned New Orleans, someone in the group has mentioned New Orleans. So if you're going to New Orleans and you are studying a program which is business management, which does not have too much employability in New Orleans, I don't see the reason why you should go to New Orleans. You should probably be in a place where businesses are flourishing. So take these things into consideration. And of course, you should look at your own academics as well. Look at your GRE score, look at your GMAT score, look at your TOEFL, IELTS, your own academics to better gauge which schools you can get into. Or you can take professional help from someone like us to actually assist you with this. Shivang has asked me a little advice on all the factors to keep in mind while applying for masters in the US. Shivang, like I said earlier through my presentation, start early. You should actually, why don't you email me, Shivang, specifically at binoy@myeduworld.com, and we can take it forward from there. Veena, you asked me, can you tell me how to know the number of credits MS college offers? It's listed in the program that you're applying to. Usual master's programs in America are 30 to 36 credit hours, which is about 10 to 12 unique subjects. MBA programs are 60 credit hours, which is 20 subjects. Undergraduate programs are 120 credit hours, which is about 40 subjects. Shivang, is it better to go for universities with average fee structure and average ranking? Shivang, this is very specific to your background and your requirement. If you have a specific budget in mind, then you can even target a good university. If your academics are good, you could even aim for a scholarship. So it should be a mix of a lot of factors when you're looking at a university shortlist. Mridula, I did not understand your question. You asked how much AMOI. I don't know what that means. How much amount for MS in occupational therapy? Usually 40,000 US dollars is the average cost. How can I send extracurricular certificate as proof? You don't need to, Debarun. That's the question you asked. As I mentioned in the presentation, most universities don't want these extracurricular certificates to be sent. You can mention your activities on your resume. Bhargav, you asked me, how is Marist College for Computers? It's actually a very good private college in the state of New York. It's actually highly reputed. However, I would also consider New York Institute of Technology, that's NYIT. I would even look at UMass Lowell, UMass Boston. Nitish Agarwal, I couldn't hear you, so please, if you don't mind, can you repeat how is University of New Orleans? It's not a school that's a popular choice for our students. New Orleans as a location is not preferred. As a university, it's pretty good. Suprit, what is the process of applying for scholarship in US universities? Well, your scholarship application goes along with your program application, and most program applications consider scholarships as a part of the overall application. What I mean by that is sometimes, most often or not, you don't need to make a separate scholarship application. When you're sitting on the application, you just need to check scholarship, assistantships, and they'll help you with that. Sahil, you asked me which universities provide MS in computer science specializing in databases. Most universities do. Sahil Karkhanas, does MIS require WorkX compulsory? No, not at all. A lot of our students who've gotten into an MIS program do not have work experience. Umesh Masuram, which admission procedure will start in US, UK? I don't know what that means, Umesh. Yes? Not that one. Varun Amin, you asked me which program would be suitable for data analytics. Well, if you want to look at it from the business side, there are actually full-blown degrees in data analytics. If you're looking at something else, well, That's a little different. Nitish Agarwal, 70% in BTech, how much GPA is that? Nitish, I can't sit here and convert it for you, but you're looking at a 3.3. It also depends on the university you're currently following. So that's why university asks for transcripts, right? So they can convert it for you. Manoj Reddy, GPA to BTech, how to calculate? You can actually, one second, let me go back to Nitesh's question. GPA to BTech, how do we calculate it? You simply can go to WS, you can pay $20 and get this done. Manoj Reddy, best country for mechanical engineering other than Germany? Manoj, it's the US, hands down. Devarun, what kind of profile is necessary to get funding in MS in computer science? Very specific to the university you're looking at, but I would say at least a 315 on the GRE, profile score of 95 and above, and a GPA of a first class with not too many backlogs, and a very good research paper that you've written for in your undergraduate will help you with a good scholarship. Which is better, MIS or MS in computer science? They're very different program style. MIS is more about studying information systems overall, which is basically a detailed program to study databases and looking at uh, information systems and ERP systems like SAP. Or it's a very detailed study. It's a very different industry. MS in computer science would be a more open field for you. Bhargav, you asked, will showing different funds for I-20 and during visa affect visa approval? Not at all. They're actually unlinked. Shivang Maheshwari, what are states in US can be considered good for job perspective in MIS related profiles? The techies actually. They're looking at the state of California and the concentrated East Coast region. Varun Amin, which program would be suitable for data analytics? I have answered that question a few times, Varun. Nitesh Agarwal, location, Indians are not safe in New Orleans. No, there's no such thing as Indians are not safe in New Orleans. It's just something that, like I said, it's not a very popular place. Like a lot of people don't go to the state of Montana or Wyoming or Iowa or Idaho. All states, all with good state universities, people just don't. Yes, you asked me about Washington State University. Yes, it is a very competitive school to get into. Varun, I can definitely help you with your score. Just send me a separate email or we'll get in touch with you. And we've got students with a lower score also to a decent MIS program, but I need to understand the rest of the profile. Sal Karkhanis, what are the requirements to get into an Ivy League college? Well, as you're aware, they're very high. You're looking at being the top 1% of your graduating class. You're looking at least a 700 on the GMAT or a 320 and more on the GRE. A student who recently got into Cornell had a 1560 or a 1540 on a GRE, and she was in the top 2% of University of Mumbai. About jobs available in US after Masters in Mechanical. Yes, Bhargav, they're heavily available. You want to know about the criteria for scholarship. Kamal, I've already answered that in my previous discussion. I'm business minded, so minor MS and CS, which is preferred. Nitesh, you should look at, you should get in touch with me with your profile discussion and we can take it forward. MIS or MS and CS, business minded. MIS, Nitesh, definitely. It's offered by the School of Business. Krishna Reddy, I want to do my master's in computer science, but I have done my undergraduates in mechanical. Will the university accept me? Unfortunately, Krishna, they will not, because you've not taken on enough programming language classes. Okay guys, unfortunately I need to end this at the moment. Take my email address down. It's Binoy, B for Bombay, I for India, N for Nepal, O for Yemen, O for Orange, Y for Yemen at myeduworld.com. I'll just put my email down. Like I said, we've started online counseling as well, and at the same time, we can even help you with only visa counseling if that's what you're looking for at this stage. It was a pleasure discussing this with all of you all, and I hope to hear from you guys soon. Our office will get in touch with you. You can take up our online counseling services, or at the same time, if you're looking at just visa, irrespective of country, we can assist you with the same. Kamal, you can definitely apply. 289 is an average score, no doubt about that, but it's not a bad score. 92 in the total meets the requirement of most universities. Uh, let's take this forward over email and on a one-on-one. All right. See you guys. Nice chatting with you all. Bye-bye.
Hello.
Better.